when you look across all the 38 countries of the OECD, New Zealand's one of the worst when it comes to the amount of waste that we produce per person. We're also one of the worst when it comes to one of the lowest levels of recyclability. And then lastly, in terms of from an emission perspective, we're also 7th out of the 38, 7th worst in terms of the carbon emissions per person here in New Zealand. So, quite some time ago, I understood those facts. I also talked those facts through with my kids, and I was really wanting to pass the red face test. When my kids would ask me, "Hey Dad, these are serious issues?" "Yes, I do." "Are you actually doing anything about it?" Question mark. My answer was probably, honestly, hand on heart, was no. And so for me, the opportunity to chair the sustainability committee was to work with others so that together we could make some meaningful change, and that one day, as soon as possible, I can actually sit and look my kids in the eye and say that, yes, I am making some meaningful change around sustainability here in New Zealand.
The work that we're now embarking on is to start to address how to lift the levels of recycling in New Zealand. It is not going to be easy, and also critically, this is not just about the brand or suppliers footing the bill. This is very much a collective team effort, which is why the stewardship initiative that we're engaged with is it's multifaceted. We have government around the table, we have the waste industry, we have packaging companies, we have brands, and working collectively, hopefully constructively, and ultimately towards an agreed outcome that we can deliver and roll out across New Zealand.
Sustainability is a massively challenging area. It needs to involve a whole lot of different stakeholders who often have competing interests across the waste sector to our members who are the brand owners and the ones investing, for example, in packaging. Our members are likely to get really clear signals economically if they're using highly recyclable materials versus if they're using less recyclable or completely not recyclable materials.
One of the fundamental great things about the Food and Grocery Council is we've got memberships from small, medium and large. And we know that, and I fundamentally believe it, that they're all wanting to make their amount of positive change when it comes to sustainability. And I think we all know that there's going to be sacrifices made along the way. But the key thing for us is that, especially through recessionary times, is that everyone wants to create a green environment, but no one wants that to be a sea of red across their financial position. And so that's why it's absolutely imperative that we continue to be proactive. We work together, we be vulnerable and share some of our challenges within where we are versus where we may need to be in terms of around our production of products and their end-to-end value chain. And it's only by doing that that we'll, as an FGC, be able to do an effective job to lobby through to the Ministry of Environment on what are some of the concerns that lie across our whole membership group, and what can we provide them to make sure that these unintended consequences are sidestepped in advance of policy being put through.
We are also responsible for implementing the Australasian recycling label into New Zealand. And sometimes decisions that government make means we have to adapt our work in those areas and we need to make representations to government about the impacts of their decisions. So that's a challenge that we will be working on for many, many years to come.
So the Ministry of Environment have been very receptive of sitting down with us on numerous occasions and listening to our concerns. And a recent example of that is the fact that they have allowed and given us the grant within the plastic packaging product scheme to the tune of $1 million. So we know that they will listen to us.
Yes, extended producer responsibility schemes already exist in New Zealand. There are 6 product categories already mandated. One of them is plastic packaging. And what I suspect will happen is the Ministry for Environment will develop a greater appetite to extend EPR across soft plastic, maybe cardboard, glass, tin, and so on. So it will be a rolling mall of EPRs. And so I think we're at the start of the journey and we can only expect more.
If you look across the globe at places like Sweden, Norway, etc., they've had an enormous amount of success in that space. And the reason I believe for that is that it makes it very mandatory for everyone to get involved. And when everyone comes along for the ride, it increases the buy-in, it increases also the scale, and for a little country like New Zealand, the scale piece, to maximise that is imperative for us to have breakthrough solutions when it comes to creating and being able to finance processing plants here in New Zealand. We are aware that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are wanting to invest in solutions around sustainability, but the key thing for me is, if I give a practical example, if they're wanting to look at waste energy, like for example pyrolysis, in terms of if they're unaware that what they're doing is actually going to be signed off by MFE and be allowed to progress, it's very hard for them to want to get the checkbook out and actually sign for the buildings to be produced, for the processing plants to be worked through, and for things to be progressed. If, on the other hand, in a lot of other countries around the world, the equivalent of the MFE provides forward transparency, which gives a really clear flight path of what an entrepreneur can and can't invest in when it comes to sustainable change.
The role of the Food and Grocery Council is critical in this. As EPRs are rolled out, there needs to be a collective voice representing all suppliers, whether large or small, because the reality is an EPR will cost all brands regardless of their scale. And so representing all small, medium players, as well as the big players, is really incredibly important. And also acting as a balancing voice, because it's not an easy area to navigating between government, the waste system, the packaging companies, and of course the brand owners.
The circular economy is an ambitious challenge for any country, but particularly for New Zealand, because we won't necessarily be able to afford to invest in the infrastructure that we need onshore to be able to have a truly circular economy within New Zealand. That is a stated aim of the government. What we want to do is work with our partners in Australia and in the Pacific and make sure that we're looking really carefully at what makes efficient sense for business, because otherwise the costs will have to be borne by consumers, and that's a bit silly. If we can do things efficiently with Australia, that makes more sense.
As a sector, we have a significant responsibility to take ownership for our waste streams, and the work that's underway with the Plastic Packaging Product Stewardship Initiative, mostly funded by Ministry for Environment, takes us to the start of an exciting future in this space.